The room was simple and unassuming. A small wooden cottage at the edge of the village, where time seemed to slow down with each passing day. The walls were lined with the traces of a life spent working the land. Farming tools, old leather gloves, and the faint smell of hay lingering in the air. There was a large wooden table in the center of the room, covered with remnants of a once active farm life. A faded plaid shirt, well-worn jeans, and sturdy boots rested in the corner, symbols of the retired life the man now lived. In the far corner of the room, a small cage lay open on the floor, and just outside it sat a baby eagle, Oran. His wings were spread out but still weak, his small body trembling with uncertainty. Oran had been found days earlier, weak and injured, by the elderly farmer, who had been taking a walk through the forest. The baby eagle, unable to fly and too fragile to fend for itself, had been taken in by the farmer, who had cared for it, offering warmth and shelter. But now Oran was growing restless, trying to understand the world around him, especially the large, unknown space in which he found himself. The retired farmer, whose name was Eli, sat quietly nearby, observing Oran. His face, lined with years of hard work and quiet wisdom, was filled with empathy. Eli knew what it was like to feel small and vulnerable. He had once been young and full of uncertainty, just like Oran. But now he was older, his days on the farm behind him, and though his body had aged, his heart remained full of the lessons he had learned in life. Eli had worked the land for decades, his hands calloused and his spirit tempered by years of hard work. His days had once been filled with the rhythm of planting, harvesting, and caring for animals, but now those days were behind him. The land had given him everything it could, and now, in his quiet retirement, he found peace in the small joys of life. But there was one thing he had learned throughout those years of labor. No matter how hard life gets, the key was always to rise again, no matter how many times you fall. As he watched Oran, Eli could see the fear in the baby eagle's eyes. It reminded him of his younger days, when he had been afraid to take that first step into the unknown. He knew the feeling of not being ready, of doubting whether one was strong enough to face the challenges ahead. He had lived it, and now he saw it reflected in the young eagle. Slowly, Eli stood up from his chair and walked over to where Oran sat. The room was dimly lit by a small lantern, casting soft shadows on the walls. Eli's footsteps were slow and steady, each one measured, a reflection of the calm wisdom he had acquired over the years. He bent down beside the baby eagle, careful not to make any sudden movements. "You're scared, aren't you?" Eli asked gently, his voice low and comforting. "I was too when I first started out. There were times I didn't think I'd make it. But life has a way of teaching you how to rise, even when it feels like you can't." Oran tilted his head up, his large eyes locked onto Eli's face. For a moment, the baby eagle hesitated, then slowly lowered his head, as if acknowledging Eli's words. The fear was still there, but it seemed to ease, if only just a little. Eli smiled softly and reached down to gently touch Oran's feathers. "You don't need to fly today, little one," he continued. "Take your time. When you're ready, you'll find your wings, and you'll rise higher than you ever thought possible." The old farmer stepped back and went to the corner of the room, where his retired farming gear lay. He picked up his old plaid shirt and pulled it on, then slipped into his worn jeans and boots. He wasn't working the fields anymore, but he still wore these clothes as a reminder of the life he had once led. The faded fabric told stories of sweat and toil, of endless days spent under the sun. But those days had passed, and now he wore them with pride, knowing they had shaped the person he had become. He returned to Oran, who was still sitting on the floor, looking up at him with a curious gaze. Eli sat down beside the baby eagle, his hands resting on his knees. The old farmer was no longer a young man, but in that moment he felt the same sense of purpose he had felt when he first started working the land. He had learned patience, resilience, and the value of hard work, and he knew these were the lessons Aaron would need to learn too. "I know it's hard," Eli said softly, "but nothing worth doing comes easily. You have to be patient with yourself. Take it one step at a time, and soon enough you'll find your way, and when you're ready, you'll soar." Eli watched with a sense of quiet pride, his heart swelling with hope for the baby eagle. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy for Aaron, but he also knew that with time, patience, and a little encouragement, the young eagle would find his wings. As the sun began to set outside, casting a soft golden glow through the window, Eli remained seated beside Aaron, watching the baby eagle take another small step forward. The room was filled with peace, the kind that comes from understanding, from knowing that growth takes time. The baby eagle had begun its journey, and with the guidance of the old farmer, he would find the courage to rise, one step at a time.